Okay, so Payday 3 has an identity issue, and today I wanted to have a chat about a major decision that Starbreeze needs to make about the future of the game, and whatever option they choose, they run the risk of ruffling the feathers of different sides of the community. You see, Payday 3 is both a sequel to Payday 2 and Payday the Heist, which are two tonally different games. Payday the Heist is a much more realistic and serious game where every heist requires some level of coordination and forethought, and completing a heist can feel very rewarding because of that. On the other hand, Payday 2 is a lot more about the moment-to-moment action and the sheer chaos that can occur during a heist. Of course, both games balance themselves around their respective identities and tones, with Payday the Heist having fewer but more punishing enemies, forcing the player to make strategic plays and pushing in and out of cover. The game's more serious tone is also represented in its limited, grounded choice of weapons and skill sets that center around the types of characters you'd realistically expect to find in a group of seasoned heisters, and prioritizes playing your part in the crew. And to top it all off, the game's narrative and heist settings are all very realistic and grounded. Then you have Payday 2, which admittedly started off more grounded, but after a while flipped the script on its head and decided to focus on making the weapons and skill system lean more towards the action-packed gameplay style. Compared to its predecessor, Payday 2's fun comes a lot more from the ability to take out waves of cops with interesting weapons, perk decks, and skills that create fun and unique playstyles. But of course, that comes at the cost of certain aspects of the game's realism. I mean, skills like feign death and inspire, weapons like the airbow and comically large spoon, heisters like Jacket and, well, these two, don't exactly fit the realistic tone of Payday the Heist. But that isn't a bad thing, don't get it twisted. I'm not here to say that Payday 2 adopting a more whimsical tone is an unfortunate thing, nor am I here to say that Payday the Heist's commitment to realism is bad either. Neither of these two games are trying to be the other. The trouble is, Payday 3 is trying to be both of them. Instead of me explaining this, I'll let the lead producer, now temporarily one of the game's directors, explain this in their own words in a clip from a recent interview with Red Archer Live.
One of the core issues that we have with the game right now is that Payday 3 is in sort of a split personality.
Right.
So if you, just to take that into perspective, if you look at Payday the Heist, that is a pretty realistic, more grounded experience. It has a different tone where, you know, the heist and the narrative is really the center of it. Whereas Payday 2 shifted more towards a power fantasy, right? Where the chaos is the thrill and the heist is sort of the backdrop, and you want to feel like this unstoppable criminal force. And I think one of the issues with Payday 3 leading up to launch has been like being somewhere in between, having like an identity crisis where we're trying a bit to cater a bit to both, but it sort of waters down the experience. So if I play the game and I try to look from the perspective from someone who wants that more grounded experience, the game feels a little bit too chaotic. Whereas if I look at it from the perspective of someone who wants to feel like that unstoppable criminal force, it's a little bit too bland.
Right.
And I think a lot of the choices that we've made has put us in that spot where it's somewhere in between, and it's sort of, it makes the game feel scattered and it leads to over complexity and so on. So I think like one of the key focus things that we're doing right now is really like what identity and what fantasy should we really lean into moving forward.
The rest of this interview is absolutely brilliant and provides such a great deal of insight as to where the team's mindset is at and the kind of approach they're taking to year 2. I'll of course leave a link to it in the description of this video and in the end card so that you can watch it in full, which I highly recommend you do if you haven't already. But as Andreas says, Payday 3 is struggling with its identity. Well, if we're being completely honest, this has been apparent from the get-go. In fact, I wanted to make a video discussing Payday 3's potential identity crisis over 8 months ago, but didn't because I simply had too much to say. Every time that I thought I was done with the script, a day or so later, I had a bunch of new ideas, or rather concerns, that I wanted to add to it. But it was watching this interview and specifically hearing this response that brought one question to mind. And this is no doubt a question that Starbreeze have been asking themselves over the last few months as well. Of course, this is the all-important question of which tone do they go for, and arguably more importantly, how will the community community respond. I've of course got my personal preferences as to the tone I'd like to see Payday 3 adopt moving forward, however I'm also very aware that I am just one voice in a community of many, and in fact I encourage you to let me know the direction you'd like to see the tone of Payday 3 go in the comments section down below, and whilst you're down there consider clicking that subscribe button. As for what I'd like to see from a gameplay perspective, I'm quite a big fan of the power fantasy of Payday 2, and that has actually stayed relatively consistent with what I enjoy in Payday 3, finding myself gravitating towards high risk, high reward playstyles such as the Infinite Moscone build and single armor chunk Assassin's Metal builds. And while of course there is no wrong way to play a game, there is a wrong way to balance a game, and balancing a game for two completely separate playstyles isn't exactly what I'd call the right way to go about game design, admittedly a field I know very little about. One of the things that I'd really like to suggest in order to improve the fun I'm having with my builds in the game is to increase cop spawns. But that has a negative knock-on effect on people who might be using lower damage builds. What I mean by this is I often find myself running out of enemies to fight in Payday 3 because I use such strong builds that melt through individual cops. So a simple answer to increase my enjoyment of the game is throw more cops at me. But if somebody who may even be in my same lobby derives their enjoyment from the game through using something like the Car 4 and popping in and out of cover to pop headshots off of cops, then by increasing the spawn rates, that might put too much pressure on their build and cause them to stop having fun with the game. Well, that's assuming that they are currently having fun with the game, especially if they enjoy popping in and out of cover, as cover is a really difficult thing to take in this game when you've got cloakers flying all over the place, which for me is something I really enjoy. And I hope you can now understand where I'm coming from when I say my easy fix would be, hey, give us more cop spawns, but somebody else's easy fix might be, hey, reduce the spawn of cloakers and so on. And that's just a gameplay example of how attempting to cater to these two separate playstyles within the same game actually ends up being a net negative for both playstyles. And to touch on narrative very briefly, as that really could be a topic for a whole other video, as a console player I wasn't able to play too much of the Payday 2 content that was released later into the game's lifecycle. However, I still followed the developing story very closely. As a fan of other franchises with extremely intricate and lore-heavy narratives such as Call of Duty Zombies, I actually fell in love with Payday because of the story told in Payday 2's later years. In fact, there's very little that I'd like to see more from a narrative point of view than the return of some of the more fantastical elements of the Payday story. Though I understand that's not exactly the most popular opinion out there, so as I said, we'll save that for another day. There's also the topic of heisters and the heists themselves. If Payday 3 was to adopt a slightly less serious tone going forward, then the door to more chaotic and over-the-top set pieces and characters is opened. With Jacket seemingly all but confirmed to be the next heister, it does look like the era of Payday 3 taking itself seriously, or at least as seriously as it has been, is coming to an end. That doesn't necessarily mean we won't still see the occasional addition to the game that does take itself seriously, or by the same token, perhaps the more whimsical additions will be the ones that are fewer and far between. But whatever way you look at it, I think taking Payday 3 in a slightly less serious direction is the right way to go. And that's not just because it means more rousing and exciting additions to the game are on the table, such as more explosive and electrifying heists, the additions of some really cool skills in a potential skills rework, or the return of some of our favourite features like dual-wielding weapons. But at its core, I think this would be the right decision because a game that takes itself less seriously always has the opportunity to include content that does take itself seriously. But if things were the other way around and Payday 3 decided to hunker down into the realism, then we could never get some of the more whimsical content. So is embracing the slightly more light-hearted side of the franchise the right call? Well, while I may think so, only time will tell. In summary, Payday 3 has tried to cater to fans of both Payday 2 and Payday the Heist. In an attempt to satisfy both audiences, they've pleased neither and instead muddied the identity of the current game. It seems like Starbreeze have acknowledged that there needs to be a decision made about the tone of the game going forward. It remains to be seen what exactly that entails for the game and, more importantly, how the community will respond. If you're wondering why there's no Payday 3 gameplay in this video, well, with the current issue making it so having too many people on your Nebula friends list tanks the game's performance, I was quite literally unable to record any usable footage for this video. But hey, maybe that means I should go back and play some Payday 2 sometime soon, right? After all, there's quite a few heists that I, being a console player, haven't actually got got the chance to play yet. I don't know exactly what content I should be making about my first time playing a good chunk of the Payday 2 heists, but if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments section down below, and I guess we'll see what happens. For now, on screen, you can find the full interview Red Archer Live conducted with Almir and Andreas. I genuinely thought this was a terrific interview, and if you haven't already seen it, then I suggest you get to it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.